Good afternoon, First Alert Meteorologist Diane Phillips coming to you from our First Alert desk. And as you know, well, I'm sure many of you know, we did have severe weather last night, and that's what I want to highlight here this afternoon. As we get started here at the 2 o'clock hour, I'm going to give folks a little bit of time to join our live stream. If you are in the Grand Blanc area, or even if you have family and friends there, that's what we're going to be talking about, is the tornado that we had last night. So you can let them know that they can join this stream. We are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, and we are also live on the TV5 News app. So if you are joining us from any of those products, or even if you're streaming us through your Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, you can find us everywhere. So we are going to be talking again about the tornado, and also if you have any questions or if you have any pictures, feel free to drop them in the comment section. Also, I highly recommend using our TV5 News app. We have a section on there that you can submit storm photos. We will be going over some of the photos, but if you've been there and you know, hey, I have some pictures, you may want to take a look at this, we will happily take a look, and we appreciate everybody who sent in already photos and videos that we are able to use. Of course, we'll kind of go a little bit later on and we'll look through those comments, but some of the things that I'm going to be looking into is kind of peeling back the curtain so you can see what your First Alert weather team was looking at. All of us, we were up, we were watching this one and checking radar and communicating with one another. So we're going to go back and show you what conditions we were looking at to make sure that you were best prepared for the storm as that was rolling through. We'll also look at videos and some of the photos that we have sent in or had sent into our newsroom. So we have a lot to talk about. First, let's dive into our radar here. So this is kind of a wide view of the storm that we had, and I'm just pulling this time frame. So this is from the early hours of this Wednesday morning, and you can see here in this that of course we have this big complex, so this large pack of thunderstorms. So as we pull out the pointer here, we kind of had this system off towards the north, and then we have this batch further south. So this setup did have a little bit of a break. You can see kind of between the two, but really it was this line that was in our southern zones. We saw that through Genesee County that was packing the better punch considering all the thunderstorms that we did have throughout mid-Michigan. So this is kind of a wide picture here of the line of storms, and it looks almost like a generic thunderstorm, except it's February, and it was able to bring us some heavy rain, also brought us lightning, hail, and of course that tornado. As far as kind of a statewide view here, I had a few people ask, because we had tornadoes also in Marshall, so a lot of people were saying, was that the same storm that came in? And it wasn't the same cell. So it wasn't the same cell that was able to drop the tornado in Grand Blanc as it did in Marshall, but it is still from the same line. You can see that line traveling there along I-94 where I-69 intersects, and then that continued to travel through the Lansing area, east along 96 and 69, before we saw that line come in, and just west of 75 is when we really started to find that line trying to rotate. So we'll get into a little bit more of that, but we weren't the only ones who saw severe weather. Here's a look at some of our local storm reports. We do have our partners at the National Weather Service. They are out surveying, and we are waiting for confirmation from them as far as the details regarding the distance that the storm traveled. We're also waiting for the strength of the storm, because actually these storms are measured as far as the damage, because a lot of times, and just like last night, we're not able to get a good look at the storm. We're not able to get measurements within the storm. So we go and we have teams survey the damage, and we know what kind of wind speeds it would take to cause that damage. So we are still waiting for those scales. But again, the tornado that we had in Marshall, that reported at 12:35 a.m. So just a short hour later, we would have the tornado on the ground in Grand Blanc. Again, not from the same cell, but from the same line of thunderstorms. And you will find that those reports are mainly the only tornadoes that we had throughout the state of Michigan. Now, here in mid-Michigan, though we had the tornado, that's the lone report that we had here in our counties that we support with weather coverage. So you will find it wasn't very far away that we did have some hail, and that was reported if you were traveling down 75. And we also had hail reported in Lansing, and quite a few reports you can see from that storm along 94 of hail. Another thing to point out is our friends in Chicago. They also had quite a few tornadoes last evening. You can see quite a bit of hail. So this whole system really did bring in a punch, you could say, because we had the severe weather threat here. Further north, the same storm was bringing blizzard-like conditions in parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin. So we were on the warm side. We were able to see the severe weather side of this system. So let's dive into radar. So these are captures that we pulled from last night. So it's hard to put it into motion, but I am going to point out some features here that we were watching. So this is at 107. I also remember around 105, I saw this notch around Mundy Township, and I thought, okay, along this line, we could be looking at some rotation trying to occur within that line. Another thing to point out is you can also see we have this hooking feature kind of coming. So this is north of I-69. This is around the Swartz Creek area. So we have these two areas that we were watching around Swartz Creek and around Mundy Township. Both were trying to rotate, and we typically find that along the northern edge of these thunderstorm lines. You kind of see the bookend where it tries to, at the end of its rope, we could say, kind of come around and start that rotation or that hooking feature. So we had these two areas that we were watching. Again, this is about 5 to 7 minutes after 1 o'clock. Also want to point out this line that we have here coming through Atlas and then just clipping southwestern Lapeer County. This is almost like a quasi-warm front that we had pushing. So that provided us with some mechanisms for us to see these storms, but it also allowed these storms to be elevated to tap in to some better ingredients. So as we fast forward here 3 minutes, because we do get our updates on radar, these scans, we call them, every little scan, we see that about every 4 to 5 minutes. So in our next scan here, you will find that we have still that notch that's appearing. It's just west of Grand Blanc. It's just west of M54. And we can see that notch that we had around Swartz Creek. It's still there. It's a little bit bigger, but also we have that heavy rain stretching all the way from Flint and then headed down towards Fenton. Now the system moving very quickly. It didn't take very long, and we saw that around Mundy Township, knocking on the door to Grand Blanc. So it's really this notching feature, and this is where we have air that's kind of flowing into the storm. It's kind of pushing back in, and as that storm is rotating, it's able to wrap that air in and start the rotation to where we can start then that spinning motion and get a tornado. So as we go just a little bit later, you can kind of see here in Grand Blanc that we do have, at this point, we were looking at our velocity, which is wind. We'll talk about that, but we still have that notch feature coming in. At this point, we are looking at a tornado situation that was coming in. And you can see that the system further north, that was just around Swartz Creek, was moving into Flint. That started to fade away. So that didn't allow that storm to take off, though both areas we were watching very closely. So at this point, we were focusing our attention on Grand Blanc and then getting on the air to give and bring you the latest information. So around 1:13, you can see that storm that started moving in. We saw that just east of M54 at this point, coming through downtown Grand Blanc, and that's going to continue to push through. So at this point, we were in our safe zones. We were on air making sure that you knew the latest information regarding that tornado. Now that's just a look at our radar. Really, velocity, or what is our rotation tracker, is going to tell a better picture of where we were kind of looking at the tornado here. So if there's a lot going on in this picture, and you're going to find that this red and green, you don't see it when you go and open up the TV5 First Alert weather app. This is another feature that we meteorologists are able to access from the National Weather Service radar. So this is what we call velocity. It's measuring winds. The red winds are going away from the radar, and the green winds are coming into the radar. So that radar is located south of where the storm is. So you can see that we have these winds. They are coming in, and these would be going out. So that's where we have this kind of rotation coming together. And the tighter that this area is, brings us a little more confidence that we would have a tornado. So you can see, I'll get rid of my drawings, it's a little bit broad at this point. It's starting to come together, and into the next frame, very much so. You can see how tight this is, and you can also see here how bright that green and how bright that red is. So at this point, this is 1:13 a.m. we were heading on air and we were looking at quite a few other features to see if we could gather data to find if that tornado was on the ground. As we go fast forward in time, you can see here that the storm, this is kind of a far out view. I will zoom in just a little bit, but I want to continue here on this far out view for just the next couple of steps. But you can see that it's just kind of the west side of Grand Blanc starting to push through the commercial area that was hit first, and then it did continue to move into the residential. Still, we have really good structure here as far as those winds coming together. And then as we go just a few minutes later, we still have that advancing eastward minute by minute, kind of stepping through Grand Blanc as that continued out of the commercial area and then into a lot of our residential zones. And once we got to around 1:20, you can see here that the storm is now east of the downtown. This is where we started getting reports of that being in our residential areas. You can still see that we have that green and that red coming together, but there's a little more space between the two. So at this point, we started seeing that we still had some debris that was in the air, but we were finding that the storm was starting to weaken at that time. Now, I was just talking about debris, so I'm going to bring up our debris tracker here. And as the storm is coming in, if you don't have a tornado on the ground, it's hard to pick up any debris. It's hard to pick up tree branches. It's hard to pick up road signs. It's hard to pick up the lawn chair that you have in the front yard. It's hard for a storm to pick that up unless it's on the ground. So you will find here kind of this pocket of brighter colors. This is around the GM plant. This is right just along, kind of sitting along M54. And then headed in to Grand Blanc. So we did have some reports of damage from the GM plant. So at this point, we were starting to see on radar that we were picking up on some debris, meaning that it would be able to have debris in the air, which is one of the most dangerous features that you can have in a tornado. So here's kind of a closer look. This is at 1:15. We were able to get this radar snapshot. So this is showing the debris that we were picking up as the storm kind of coming into Grand Blanc and settling down into the town. Also, we had reports of Indian Hill subdivision and some damage there. And you can see here on our debris tracker that we do kind of have this big, we could call it a big ball of colors here with these blues and these grays. And so at this point, we were confident that we had flying debris in the air, and that aligns up with a lot of our reports of damage. That continued on to move through. Here we are at 1:17. And that also was able to carry the debris. As you will find, it continues to kind of go further along Perry Road. We had a report come in and someone said, I don't have any damage here, but I have debris in my yard. So as what we're anticipating happened is that storm was so strong that it was carrying a lot of the debris with it, and it was lifted and kind of got stuck high up in the atmosphere. And as the storm then started to wane, it was able to bring that debris back down, kind of carrying that across town, which is quite a distance when you think about flying debris and being able to carry that. But that is what we're looking at on the ground level. Also, the Grand Blanc East Middle School was another location that we had reported damage. So along Perry Road, we do have crews out there today. They are going to be driving, of course, all through town, but one of the locations we were really watching for is driving along Perry Road to see where we have damage and what kind of damage we do have. But definitely this debris ball here showing that the storm making contact with the ground and kind of ripping it apart a little bit, and that continued to travel further eastward for us. Here's our final scan here looking at debris. This is at 1:22 a.m. where this is at Vassar Road and Hill Road. We saw some reports of damage here as well, or debris. So that continued to push through. Again, another telltale sign that we did have those storms. Here's another check of the velocity. This is a little bit closer. Again, this is our wind component, and you'll find that there's quite a bit of space between the reds and the greens coming together. But look at this little notch right there along 23. So at this point, we didn't quite have a tornado on the ground, but it didn't take very long, and just a few minutes later, we had kind of those reds and those greens coming together. This is our storm relative velocity, so we are still measuring our winds coming in and out, but you are going to find that this is just west of 75, and at this point we would be looking at this rotation being very tight. But as far as it really coming together, look at this, the big difference between the two. You have these bright colors, they're coming together, they're merging. So this is where we're confident that we did have that wind that was going away, and then the green was coming in, giving us that rotation. So that is as it was just coming into Grand Blanc. We also saw around the Kohl's, the Walmart, the car dealerships there, and even heard of a local restaurant that suffered damage in that zone. So that's as that tornado was coming together. You can still see at 114, we're holding, we still have that rotation, we still have the momentum in the storm. And by the time we get to 119, that red's kind of fading a little bit. We're getting a little more distance between the two. Still, you have a nice little couplet here. And after having flying debris at this point, still would hang with it, even in hindsight. So this is as it's just north of Perry Road, and then that continued off towards the northeast. So that's why Vassar Road was also seeing those conditions. So this is just kind of a look behind the scenes at what we saw here on our side as radar. There's just more than seeing oranges and reds on radar. Of course, those features are very helpful, but they do not measure the winds within the storm, and they don't give us that wind direction that we are able to check in on. So we also, though, do want to let you know cleanup efforts, they are underway. So some intersections through Grand Blanc, be prepared for detours. If you don't have to be into the area, just avoid going. There's a lot going on. Power crews are going to be working on getting and restoring power to the area. You are going to find that Dort Highway at a couple of intersections, so at the intersection of Reed Road, Grand Blanc Road, and Gibson Road is where we have those closures. You'll also find that Reed Road and Porter Road are also some intersections that you're going to want to avoid, and there are those closures along M54. As far as a time that will open up, we do not have an anticipated open time for the roadways, so just be mindful with some detours. And again, if you don't have to head to Grand Blanc, it's kind of just easier to stay out of the way and let people kind of catch up and clean up with what we have. I'm going to take us over to our website here. So this is some of the pictures that were sent in, and a lot of these did come in shortly after the tornado. This one, very interesting. You are going to find, of course, the power lines. The one there is snapped off, and also the building suffering great damage. You can also see some of that debris carried out into the roadway. So obviously the flying debris component, and then the potential of carrying that even further. So that's why we always have people shelter in place, because we want you to stay away from that flying debris. Here's a photo coming in. This was around Indian Hills, again, one of the areas that had reported damage. You can see that tree not upright how it should be. A lot of tree works. We talked to tree crews at noon today, and they're going to be working all the way to sunset tonight. Sunset is going to be around 6:30, and then they may be able to work a little bit as we have that evening glow. Here's another look at some of those snapped power lines that we have, of course, leaving those into the roadways. If there are still some power lines that are down, make sure you report them. Call 911, report those down power lines, and avoid them. Do not come close to them. Let the professionals cut the power to them and make sure that we can get things cleaned up. Here's another look of some trees that were down. You can also see kind of leaving a mess there into the roadways. So we're definitely going to have a lot of cleanup that's not only going to take place today, but even as we go into tomorrow. More tree branches are down. Of course, this is residential neighborhoods, so for people who were just getting those notifications, of course, making sure that you're able to get severe weather notifications into the night is a big help for keeping everyone safe. I am happy to report that we do not at this time have any fatalities or injuries that have been reported. Of course, if something changes, we will let you know, but so far so good that everybody was able to seek shelter or avoid the flying debris or damage that was caused from these storms. Here's another image of some trees laying on this house, and also kind of messing up the siding and so much more. And also look at the tree. The whole tree was able to uproot itself, considering that conditions are very mild. The ground not really frozen all that deep, so we were able to kind of lift those roots up and kind of that tree toppling over. You also will find a very different angle, but same house here. This is of the branches laying down. You can see the gutter is going to have some roof damage here. So the National Weather Service is going to take into consideration of what kind of wind speeds would it take to have damage like this. And look at this. That's a healthy tree for the coloring that we have there. So this is also that same tree that fell in. Of course, trimming your trees as we go into the season, the severe weather season, not a bad idea to take care of those. Here's also the roots that were coming up from that tree. And here's another home that was working with tree damage. So a lot of those trees going to be something that we are cleaning up here for days. Conditions today, not ideal with the wind. And also, we're going to find some nicer days coming our way as far as doing a little bit of cleanup. So those were some of the images that we had. We also were able to get some video here. So I will share this with you. We had our very own Lauren Piesco out there this morning. So you will find that she was talking to a local homeowner. And this is kind of the look that they were seeing right as the sun was coming up this morning. It was so hard last night to get a good look at what we were working with, but you will find that, of course, with the homeowner able to assess and see what was going on in that time frame. So we appreciate everybody helping us out. And kind of and sharing your experiences, because it's hard when you have a tree on your house and you're trying to talk to the insurance, and it's just a very stressful time. So of course our thoughts are going out to the folks in Grand Blanc as they are going to be cleaning up here for a while and having a lot of crews that are going to be doing their best. So as we look at a little more data, we do have some power outages that I want to touch base on. You'll find here in Grand Blanc that we do still have quite a few outages. Pardon, I got a little tickle in my throat, but power crews, the weather that we have today is very difficult because those wind speeds around 35 to 40 miles per hour. And with those, it's going to be very hard to get buckets up. And also it takes a lot of crew power to replace those poles. So we will, of course, be tracking. We're also finding some power outages outside of Grand Blanc. So if you notice that you do have your power is out, keep checking in with consumers, seeing what time that is going to be restored. And of course, we will continue to update you on air and also online. Now, I do want to share this video. This came in from Mike Joseph. This is from his Nest camera. So if you have a camera at your house, you may have been able to catch some interesting looks. This is from, this is looking towards the north, and you'll want to keep your eyes kind of this northeast corner here. So let's take a look. Now it's right there. That was very interesting in the video. because we were able to see from that lightning strike. I'm going to kind of scrub across this video here, and you were really able to see it right there, kind of the structure of the storm. So you have, and you can still kind of see it here, my video wanting to continue to play, but we do have kind of the wall of this. Also, there was a lot of rain within the storm. So the tornado itself, we're not going to get the greatest of picture because you're going to have the rain kind of wrapping around it. But you will find that we have the inflow of that storm. So that is going to, let me see if I can really kind of get close to that lightning strike. So yeah, pretty close here. So yeah, you can kind of see here that comes down. You have the inflow wrapping around the storm. You have that wall. So this is going to be as that tornado is coming down. You can also hear the sirens that were going off in the video. Now, another thing to point out is that the tornado sirens were going off multiple times within this storm. And even after it was clear, we did get reports that the sirens were continually going off through Genesee County. Genesee County has a system to where all sirens are connected on one. So even though the northern portion of the county was not under that tornado warning, everybody was receiving the outdoor warning sirens, and we are working with crews, but I do want to say that outdoor warning sirens should not be your primary source for getting tornado information. Those only work for people who are outside. If you are playing, boating, having fun in the summer, they are to alert you that you need to head inside and then head to TV5 and get the latest information from your first alert weather team. And the reason that they only work for outside, and I know you're saying, Diane, I can hear them inside my house, but the issue is that we were using those during the war, but that technology hasn't really advanced, but insulation in our homes has greatly improved, so you're not necessarily supposed to hear them within your home. So that's why you should have a weather radio. They flash and they do alert you, and they go off once they get that information from the National Weather Service. Also, if you have the TV5 First Alert Weather app, I got the push notification on my phone right as that was coming out. So again, have multiple ways that you are able to get severe weather information. This is key going into severe weather season because this is only the beginning. Yes, it was an early arrival, but this is just kind of the start of our stormy season, as we will find more of that action as we go into spring and summer. Now, tornadoes in February, of course, we all know that's not normal. This is supposed to be our cold, windy, snowy season. But I was looking back in the data. This is the first tornado warning that we have seen from the Detroit National Weather Service office since 2000, the year 2000. So it's been over 20 years that we have seen a tornado warning from that office in the month of February. Of course, last night changing that. Also, we did have, though, not too long ago in the state of Michigan on February 28th, 2017, the Northern Indiana National Weather Service office did issue a tornado warning as we had a tornado in Niles, Michigan, which is in the far southwest corner of the state. So that was one of the more recent times that we did have a tornado in February, but you'll find a lot of these a little more recent in time. Of course, we can't look all the way back through all of the data, but that's just some of the information that we were able to see. We did have in total 6 tornado warnings last night within the storm, but in 2023, 2022, we didn't have any tornado warnings for January or February. So our conditions overall definitely a little bit different as far as what we were anticipating seeing from the storms and what we would normally see even in February. You may find this a little bit interesting. I'll bring this up here on our computer. So this is a look at, there it goes. Whoops, that one didn't pull just right. Here we go. So this is a look at the temperature difference compared to 24 hours ago. So if you remember 24 hours ago, we were in the 70s. Now we're into the 20s. So we're looking at almost a 50-degree difference in the last 24 hours. We went from shorts and t-shirt weather to where now we are wearing our winter coats, hats and gloves, and it's quite chilly outside. Here's a look at our wind chills that we have. Wind chills are into the single digits. So if you were anticipating that warm weather to hold on, it couldn't quite hold on for us. Air temperatures, though, are into the mid-20s, and we've kind of been holding there. But with those gusty winds, everything has just kind of been on the cooler side. And those winds, I know, have been problematic. They're problematic for power crews that are trying to restore power. We are going to find that the wind gusts around sunset will settle down a little bit. We won't find those around 30 to 40 miles per hour anymore. We'll see them more towards 25 miles per hour within that range. We also do have the wind advisory, so that is going to wrap up. We'll find that just shortly after sunset around the 7 o'clock hour. But that's everybody here in mid-Michigan that is going to be under that wind advisory. So if you're hoping for some improvements, just hold on tight, have a little bit of patience, and hopefully we can get those conditions cleared out. I'm going to turn you back over to our current temperatures here, but if you guys have any questions or comments, I'll go here through some of the comments. I know a lot of you have said it's very crazy the weather that we have. Liz asked if this storm has been rated on the enhanced Fujita scale yet, and Liz, hopefully you're still on. It has not, because we have not received word yet from our partners at the National Weather Service. So this is what we're waiting for to get that rating, and it looks like we may have just gotten it. Okay, so we do have this information coming in. I don't have any graphics for you just yet, but actually we just got this about 10 minutes ago. So here, while we were on air, but it is rated an EF2 tornado. So that means that the peak winds within the storm would have been about 115 miles per hour. The National Weather Service is surveying, saying that it traveled about 5.7 miles through the Grand Blanc area, and that the width of the storm could cover about 450 yards. So that's how wide the tornado itself would be. Of course, I have the latitude and longitude of these, but by Bicentennial Park is where they started and anticipate that tornado touchdown. That's where we started seeing damage of uprooted trees and multiple trees down, and also some garage doors and even a roof suffered damage in that area. It then did continue on towards Dort Highway and was able to make significant damage, just like that image that we were able to share. Let's see if I can bring that back up, because that was also referenced here. So this building here is what they were referencing. And as you can see, very much significant damage, also contributing to that EF2 rating. And then that did continue down. A lot of this report saying that garage doors were damaged, a lot of tree damage, and even some damage to a lot of local roofs. So we did have this storm that it did weaken, as we talked about, as it was going through on radar, and it did lift shortly after it did cross over Perry Road. So that was when we saw, as we go back and kind of compare some of the data here. So this is where we were still seeing that debris that was falling, but the tornado at this point was weakened, started to lift, and then as that debris would come down, of course, we'll have to clean that up. But thankfully, the tornado at this point no longer being able to do any more damage. The end time of this tornado was at 1:22 a.m. It was on the ground for approximately 10 minutes because the start time was around 1:12. As we look at our velocities here, again, this is kind of our far view, and our team, we were looking at this and we saw these winds coming together, still though pretty broad, a little bit of space in between the two. And here you can see 113, our radar scan, nice and tight. So that lines up perfectly with their report and what we saw on radar for these conditions. So we are going to have more coverage coming up with this storm coming up at 4, 5, and 6 o'clock. That's going to be on air. Of course, you can also find more content online, and we will continue to bring you latest information. We are going to have more on that EF2 rating. And of course, if you have any pictures that you want to share with us, please go use your QR code, scan, or use the QR code, scan this with your phone right now, and then you can just go on the TV5 News app or the First Alert Weather app, and you can go and submit those photos there, and then that'll give us the ability to use those on air and online. Of course, a lot of you have been sharing them on social media as well, so feel free to share with us any pictures that you have, or even any information. So I am going to sign off. Of course, for a lot of people in the Grand Blanc area, we do hope that everything goes smoothly, and during cleanup efforts, you will find conditions to improve for that as we go into the later half of this week and into the weekend. It'll be dry, it'll be warm. Our next rain chances will be early next week, but those winds, they will settle down. Of course, know that we are sending some positive thoughts and vibes for all of you. And of course, we'll have more information and resources available as those come. But for now, everybody stay safe, make sure you stay updated, and continue to prep for more severe weather season, for more severe weather, as that will be coming as we head into the spring and summer seasons. Thanks for joining us.